A controversial new bill in Colorado is proposing adults between the ages of 18 and 25 who commit non-violent felonies that they be tried as juveniles. Why? Because while the law may consider them adults, some say science doesn't. Join us now to weigh in the audience is neuroscientist Dr. Don Vaughn. Still with us is Dr. Lisa Stroman, attorney and clinical psychologist. So, okay, from a neuro standpoint, let's break down this bill and whether or not it makes any sense purely from the neuroscientific perspective.
Well, the bill really surfaces a conflict between the legal system and our biology. The legal system requires a specific age for adulthood, and we now know that brains develop gradually and that not everybody's the same. There is no exact age when the brain is suddenly fully developed, and so pretending that it is a difficult situation to be in. And if you really had to pick a hard line on what's adult enough, it wouldn't be 18.
What would it be, may I ask? Because in this bill, it would be theoretically 25. And you're still then saying, well, at age 25, you'd be considered juvenile. By 26, you're an adult. It's still arbitrary, but I'm not putting you on the spot here, but when do our brains get to a place where we would consider them more adult-like?
The brain continues developing well into our 20s. The prefrontal cortex, which is absolutely critical in controlling our impulses and making good long-term choices, is still developing into our late 20s, and it's still coming online. And to make things worse for adolescents, the reward system that drives our urges and our desires to act, it's on overdrive during these periods. So while it's fully developed, because it's so strongly activated, novelty-seeking, risk-taking behavior, and feedback from friends is extremely compelling to adolescents. And so it's not surprising that even at age 20, someone is 50% more likely to engage in risky behavior than an adult when there are peers present.
Peer pressure.
So let me ask then, to up the ante here, Dr. Vaughn, what are your thoughts on the bill? Do you think that this is a reasonable bill to consider in your mind?
I think this bill, as you point out, Dr. Travis, it's starting an important conversation, and there's a lot of problems with it. It's not specific enough, it doesn't include the right crimes, it's gonna overload the legal system, but we need to have a serious conversation right now that the current legal system is out of step with what we now know about neuroscience. And as a result, the legal system it's failing drug addiction. It is failing people with mental health issues, and it is failing troubled adolescents. And all these things together are the reason why the United States has the highest incarceration rate on the planet.
Has there ever been an instance when someone said, I know this person is 22, but let's take into consideration their brain isn't fully developed, so let's try them as a juvenile? Has that ever stood up in court for just a regular person?
There is no case law in that situation, because if you look at developmentally, and I worked in juvenile crimes and I prosecuted juveniles, so I'm very clear on this part. The difference between right and wrong developmentally typically occurs about 11 and 12 for a normal neurotypical brain. So Dr. Vaughn, I think that, again, the development of the brain and whether or not you can differentiate between right and wrong from a legal context is totally different. Would you agree?
I think Dr. Stroman she's exactly right, which is that it's a difficult thing in the legal system. And here's the critical point, which is that yes, the brain networks involved in knowing what's right and wrong, that's well developed by 18. But that is not the same thing as having the capacity to actually act appropriately in situations where difficult problems come up. It would be like, comparing an adolescent to an adult would be like staying up all night, being exhausted in the morning, and then going and taking an exam and having your results compared to everybody else who had a perfectly good night's sleep. It's just not a level playing field.
Well, and where this comes into play for people watching, if you're a 17-year-old, you're charged as a juvenile, ultimately that crime could basically get expunged from your record, and as an adult, you could find employment and you wouldn't have to, every time you apply for a job, say, yeah, I had this non-violent crime back, when I was such and such age. The Colorado bill would allow that same circumstance for those between 18 and 25.